How's everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. I hope everybody's having an awesome day out there today. Today, I wanted to talk about colleges. What specifically is going on with college universities in the United States? What trends are we seeing? How are they dealing with different things going on in their business model right now? And we're going to take a look at two articles here, one in the Wall Street Journal and one from the business journals that recently came out. Now, this article from the Wall Street Journal, this is titled, Sorry, Harvard, Everyone Wants to Go to College in the South Now. So the likes of Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Ole Miss are drawing students from the North who want to have fun and save on tuition. The shift is boosting the economies of cities across the region. So, we're going to talk about two main things in this episode here today. We're going to talk about the shift from students in the northeastern part of the United States going to southern schools and the southeastern part of the U.S. And we're also going to talk about diminishing college enrollments and why that is really going to test their business model in the years ahead. And we're going to talk, as we go along through this little journey here through these two articles, we're going to talk about what are some of the underlying issues that are propelling these two trends. So let's get into this here. So we're going to start with this. It says basically a growing number of high school seniors in the North are making an unexpected choice for college. They are heading to Clemson, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, Alabama, and other universities in the South. Students say they are searching for the fun and school spirit emanating from the South on their social media feeds. Their parents cite lower tuition and less debt in warmer weather. College counselors are also saying many teens are eager to trade the political polarization ripping apart campuses in New England and New York for the sense of community epitomized by the South's football Saturdays. Promising job prospects after graduation can sweeten the pot. So the number of Northerners going to Southern public schools went up 84% over the past 2 decades and jumped 30% from 2018 to 2022. A Wall Street Journal analysis of the latest available education department data found at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, total freshmen went from the Northeast, jumped to nearly 600 in a class of about 6,800, up from around 50 in 2002. At the University of Mississippi in Oxford, they increased from 11 to more than 200 in a class of about 4,500 in 2022. At the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, 11% of students came from the Northeast in 2022, compared with less than 1% 2 decades prior. And they have some really good charts here, but you could see Midwest, West, California, kind of an outlier there. But the South, I mean, just look at this explosion in the South, up, 500%, but up 797%. Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee leading the way, but South Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia. There's just this flow of kids from the Northeast to the Southeast. I mean, it's incredible. So this flow of students to Southern colleges promises to impact the region's economy for years. About 2/3 of college graduates go to work in the same state where they graduate, according to a recent study from research at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and others. The transplants are well-educated, motivated young workers at the least expensive points in their career. For most of American history, many high school seniors have aspired to go to college in the Northeast, home to the Ivy League. Southern academic stalwarts such as Duke, Tulane, Emory, and Vanderbilt have long drawn their share of students from up north, but the recent uptick of students going to the South is fueled by attendance at public universities. Though far more students apply to Ivy League schools than in 2002, some of the hottest Southern public schools, including Clemson and Georgia Institute of Technology, have seen an even bigger spike in interest. At Alabama, applications were up more than 600% in the same period, about 3 times as much as bids to attend Harvard. And again, and it gets into kind of like the Saturday football thing. Like a lot of students are into the whole, if their school's got a big football team like a Georgia or an Alabama, do they have a big time football program, and kind of what is that environment and culture like at the school because of that? But now let's get to the big daddy issue. So the increase in the number of students heading south grew for years and then accelerated suddenly after the pandemic. Federal data shows you had students home in their basement in Connecticut looking at the phone, seeing most of the Northeast closed down and not much happening, said Rick Clark, executive director at Strategic Student Access at Georgia Tech. At the same time, they're seeing sororities at Alabama and football games in Georgia and Florida. Life is happening. Savali's path to Georgia Tech was paved by 2 years listening to his older brother complain about college in upstate New York. During the pandemic, Mitch's brother had regular lockdowns at his college after he had been exposed to COVID. There were social distancing rules, mask requirements, and online classes from his dorm room. Meanwhile, both the Savali boys were watching students on television cheering at university football games down south. Like, there were more freedoms in the southern schools, and that really started to drive applications. Vincent Pisano, an assistant principal in the Long Island School District Savali attended. Then the outreach really started to grow from the southern schools. Schools like LSU and Southern Carolina started attracting huge groups of kids. Applications to some southern universities from Seville's school district on Long Island have tripled compared with a few years before the pandemic. Savali wanted to attend a college with a strong engineering program and a competitive lacrosse team. He considered 2 Boston area schools, MIT and Tufts University, were his top choice, as well as Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. He applied to Georgia Tech without knowing anyone who had gone there. When he realized his out-of-pocket cost at Tufts would be about $80,000 and Georgia Tech would be half of that, he decided to fly down for a visit, and that sealed the deal. Tuition bargains for out-of-state students. Southern schools are often a bargain, according to figures from roughly 100 of the nation's top public research universities. Last school year, such southern schools charged students from other states a median $29,000 in tuition and fees, the least of top public colleges in any region. So cost is becoming a huge issue. Scholarships can also make it cheaper. And let's see here. And then again, another chart here, like out-of-state students attended by University of Southern Carolina. You can see from the Northeast is up 68% just in the last, 3-4 years, just since 2020. So the last 4 years. So just a huge uptick right there. And then it kind of gets into like, aside from the football, there's like this kind of vibrant Greek. But here's the key thing I want to kind of get into here with this. And this is the most important thing, I think. Students who have moved to the South for college pay less tuition, pay less attention to politics than students who have moved to the Northeast. Some students are saying, I don't want to be in a super political environment, and they are opting into an atmosphere where they can focus on things other than politics. Okay, that is code for I don't want to be indoctrinated. Okay, that's what that means. I don't want to be indoctrinated with your absolutely irrational, over-the-top ideological politics. That's what that means. Okay, if you read between the lines there. Southern schools have, by and large, better track records on free speech, according to rankings by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a nonprofit civil liberties group which has defended faculty and students in cases regarding speech issues. This year, most of the top 25 schools are located in the South. The 6 schools with the worst ratings were in, wait for it, the Northeast. No shocker there. Following student protests over the war in Gaza, some Jewish and Southeastern Asian students declined to apply to some highly selective schools in the Northeast because the environment is so tense. They are being much more careful about which Ivies they are applying to and are expanding their search to the rest of the country. And then it goes on here, postcards from the beach, just kind of talk about the weather or whatever. The Southern enrollment surge is taking place in some booming regional economies. The top 5 most promising locations to find work for newly minted college graduates are in the South, according to a recent study by payroll provider ADP. Growing universities create a snowball effect for local and regional economies, especially research universities, said Jason Owen Smith, executive director of Institute for Research on Innovation and Science at the University of Michigan. More undergraduates means more customers to patronize local businesses. They can also help underwrite graduate programs that support researchers who bring in grants. That grant money is often spent with local vendors to build out labs, which in turn may generate new knowledge, patents, and startup businesses that hire people. Those businesses may then attract more high-paying employers to the region. In the short term, however, more students can also create bottlenecks when it comes to adding the infrastructure to accommodate the people. Like, okay, small trade-off there. But so again, looking at the issues here that are going on. So you've got a number of things here. The pandemic. I think the absolute, there's no doubt now, you cannot question it. The over the top reaction on the part of schools, particularly in the Northeast region of the United States, the over the top, the lockdowns, everything that was involved in that, the mandate to take the COVID shots, the masking up, the social distancing, the being locked in your dorms or being locked at home or whatever the case may be. They went too hard with it for too long, and it turned a ton of college students off. And the repercussions of that were that their younger siblings saw what was happening and saw these kids sitting there griping for 2 years about how basically this stinks. Like, this is not the college experience. I'm not paying $80,000 a year to be locked in my dorm room, masked up, jabbed up, locked in my dorm room. And that's what these younger siblings were hearing. So now the younger siblings are going, you know what? I'm not dealing with that. I'm going down south. And then just the perks to being in the South, the weather, lower tuition, the kind of cultural atmosphere, the big football programs and things like that go on at some of these Southern schools. So there's a lot of pluses there. And then you get into the hyper political and free speech issues. The schools in the South aren't as political. You can't say that that there's not some politics there. Of course, there's politics everywhere, but they're nowhere near as, I think hyper political is a good way to describe it. They're nowhere near as hyper political as schools in the Northeast currently are. And this is a huge problem for the schools in the Northeast. And I think it's going to be a huge problem for a lot of the Ivy League schools. And I think it's going to be a huge problem for their business model in the years ahead. But there's also this idea of free speech, of being able to just, speak your mind and, being able to come in there with perhaps different views or being able to just challenge views. I mean, again, what is college if not the space where you're supposed to be able to explore all different points of view? That's supposed to be the point. This is supposed to be the free environment to explore all different points of view, hear all different kinds of arguments from all different sides, and basically try to figure out like what it is that makes sense to you. Like where do you come down on a lot of these issues? And I think a lot of kids today, a lot of students, they feel like, you can't do that. You can't come into the classroom with different views. You can't even have a debate about a lot of topics. And, but at least schools in the South are doing a much better job at fostering those conversations. So that's this aspect of it. Now let's take a look at another aspect of it. So colleges face an existential enrollment threat. It could get even worse. So, and let's kind of scroll down here. So the business model and higher education sector has changed. It's become more transactional, forcing institutions to better demonstrate the value they're providing to their prospective students. That's proven to be a challenge for smaller, less selective institutions in particular. Certificate programs, apprenticeships, and immediate entry into the job market offer attractive alternatives to traditional college enrollment, driving down demand among prospective students. A lot of major companies and government institutions no longer require degrees from job seekers, adding more weight to questions about the return a student can expect on the time and money they're investing into their degrees. A survey of 1,000 active graduate and undergraduate students at best colleges found just 1/3 of those surveyed said they thought college was worth the cost. Another 38% were on the fence, while 29% said it wasn't worth the cost. So right there, you have kind of a third. You've got a third basically saying it's completely not worth it. You got a third that are on the fence, and you got a third that are basically saying that yeah, it's it's still it's still kind of worth the cost. And again, and I think that gets back to the big issue of what is your degree? What is your degree in? What are you, where are you going with this after you graduate from college? Like, in other words, if you're getting a degree in gym or, gender studies, whatever, you're probably not your job prospects after college are probably not looking that hot, whereas if you're some type of a bit, maybe you got a business major or you're a computer major, maybe you're doing something with computer sciences, or you're doing something with finance or accounting or management or marketing or something like that. You probably have a very good shot of at least, getting a decent job in financial services, or working for, a fintech company, or working for big tech, something like that, or maybe working in some kind of biosciences or engineering, or maybe SpaceX or something like that, Blue Origin. So it really depends on the degree you're going for and what you're paying for that degree and what it's going to do for you when you get out of college. And then decreased demand from graduates is beginning to show up in data. So freshman enrollment at four-year public and nonprofit institutions in particular has dropped sharply. Freshman enrollment at public four-year universities was down 8.5% this fall compared to the prior year, while the same metric fell 6.5% at private nonprofit universities. That decline comes entirely from fewer freshmen aged 18 to 20 enrolling. Students enrolling for their first year who were 21 and older increased over the same time period, though not enough to offset the overall decline. Historically, students who do not enroll into a college or university right after graduating from high school don't end up enrolling in the years following that point. So in other words, if they don't get you right away, odds of you going to college go down dramatically. And then it just says in here, like, what's next for higher education. So in 2025, the size of the high school graduating class in the U.S. is expected to peak. In the years following, the number of fresh graduates is forecast to trend downward, further trimming away at the demand many in the industry are already struggling to tap into. So colleges have a lot of problems. And I would also say that, they talk about the declining comes entirely from the fewer freshmen aged 18 to 20 enrolling. Why do you think that is? Why do we think that is happening? I'll tell you exactly why that's happening. That's happening because of men. College universities do not want men. And they've made it a point over the last 10 years to basically hang, like I've talked about this before, they hang the invisible banner outside, basically saying, men need not apply. That's why 60% of the students in college and graduating from college are women. 60%. It's not so, the number of men in college over the number of men going to college and graduating from college over the last 10 years has dramatically declined. And so, so colleges couldn't be more, forthcoming about the fact that they're not looking for guys. So guys are out there looking for alternatives. They're looking to learn trades. It's just what they said here that, certificate programs, apprenticeships, and immediate entry into the job market offer attractive alternatives. So, and I said it before, if you learn to be let's take the plumber thing for a second. Like, you learn to be a plumber versus going to college for a 4-year degree. You go into a plumber, maybe you do an apprenticeship for 6 months to a year. You have to pay some money for that. You do some training, whatever, but then you're basically off onto the job site. Maybe you join the local union, or maybe you're working for just a small business owner in a local area. But you're making money within a year or so. You're making money and you're rolling. And I guarantee you, within 4 years, you're probably not doing too bad. You might even be making somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year in just 4 years time frame. Whereas I go to college. I take out $150,000 in student loan debt, and now I get out and I can't really get a great job. Maybe I'm working at a job that's only, paying me, $30,000, $40,000 a year to start or something like that. And I've got this giant amount of college debt now on my back, so what do I do with that versus the guy who's now doing a trade, who's making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year and doesn't have any debt on his back, no student loan debt on his back. That there's a totally different financial picture there. So So there's a lot of issues here, and I think just to kind of wrap up on this, I think that the college model is in big time trouble because, like, number one, I've said before, I don't think every kid should be going to college. I think it's been kind of ridiculous that we have taken this stance where we're just trying to shove, every kid has to go to college. I think I've felt for a long time that that's ridiculous. That should not happen. I think that you should be able to go to college if you truly want. If you want to go to college, hey, go to college, but I think that for the most part, it should be geared to people that are going there for a specific reason. The whole purpose is to learn skills that will enable you to go out and get a job when you're done. It's the purpose is it's not to get indoctrinated. It's not to have, basically ideas shut down. It's not to be locked down in your dorm room. It's not to be charged, 80, 90, $100,000 a year. That's not what college is there to do. And like I said, I think that colleges and academic universities need to take a very, very hard look in the mirror at what they're doing and how they're doing it. Because these articles right here, they show what this is what's going on. This is the reality of what's happening in academia today. And it's ugly. It is ugly. And so they need to take a hard look in the mirror and figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I think they need to make some major changes. Otherwise, a lot of these schools, I think there's a little over 3,000 colleges and universities in the United States. I would venture that if they continue on the path they're currently on in another 10 years, I would say 500 or 600 of those schools are going to go away because they're just not going to be financially viable. And the state is not going to be able to pump enough money, into keep them going. Basically, they're going to reach an inflection point where they're going to say, hey, we're just drowning in debt here. We gotta shut it down. So, but all right. If you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below. I know this is a little bit of a hot button topic, and I would love to hear people's comments on this one to see if you agree or disagree. But let me know. And then make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel, and I will be back again real soon. See you later.